to the Bodies at Play cluster. Today I'll be answering some questions about the cluster's 3 core classes, dance, nutrition, and recreation.
First, I got some questions for nutrition class. What is this class about?
This class deals mainly with food. We learned about how to recognize where food comes from, what goes into food, how food is processed, if it's organic or not, calories, and exactly what is in the food that you're eating. Then there's also the scientific aspect of nutrition, which deals with like cells, and then we also learn like the environmental aspects of nutrition and how that affects the environment that we live in, basically.
What should we expect to be doing in this class?
In this class, we did a lot of lecture. There is some reading that you have to do that deals with authors who have written about food and what goes into food, how food is developed, that type of stuff. There were a few group projects that we got to do that also deal with food, so that was pretty fun.
What's your final project and what did you learn from it?
The final project of the quarter was to work in groups, and we were assigned to go to farmers markets, and from there we had to come up with a dish that we could use the stuff that we bought from the farmers markets, and we learned where exactly the food that we bought came from, who farmed it, where it was farmed, and then we used it for our dish, and then we served it to the other 2 cluster classes at the end of the quarter. So that was pretty fun. We got to make a poster and we showed the recipe and where all of our food came from, so everyone who was eating it knew what went into the food that we made.
Sounds fun. So as for the rec class, how much does your opinion matter in this class?
I feel like the recreation class, your opinion matters a lot. Most of the questions and all the work that we deal with deals with your opinion. I think our opinion on the recreation in our society is a main part of the class, how we feel about ourselves in recreation and the recreation that our society participates in was a main part of the class.
How did the group work affect your time in the class?
I feel like the group work was a main part of the class also. We had a lot of group projects to do, and the work wasn't necessarily hard. It was a lot of research, and I feel like I learned a lot about myself by working in groups and working with the other people. I learned about them. I think the main part of the group work was learning how to work in a social environment, since that's a main aspect of the class.
So how much was your workload?
The workload in recreation, we did a lot of lectures during class, and every day that you had the class, you were assigned to do discussion boards on Blackboard, along with debates. It wasn't necessarily hard work. It was more opinion-based, but it was a little time-consuming. But I learned a lot about myself by answering the questions, since they were all opinion-based.
What's the point of this class?
The point of the class, I think, deals with recreation in our society. We got to view a lot of cultures and view how their time is spent with their leisure and recreation. So it's not only about ourselves and the recreation that we participate in, but it's also about our society as a whole, because recreation is a huge part of our lives, and just noticing how we all deal with it. It's all common within all of our lives, so dealing with that.
Okay, I guess I know something about rec class. So I have some questions for dance class. What should you expect to get out of this class?
Coming out of this class, you should expect to learn a lot about yourself, mainly your body. That is the main point of this dance class. Not only your body, but also the bodies of others, because we all know that we all have different bodies. There's no body that's alike. So I really learned a lot about my body and who I am, and the bodies of others and how they live their lives with those bodies.
How about the classwork and homework? How difficult was it?
The work for this class wasn't very hard. There was weekly journals and videos that we had to review, but we just had to write responses, and they were our own opinion of what we felt about the journals and what we felt about the videos. So they weren't necessarily hard. There was one large paper that we had to do, but that was also opinion-based on how we feel about our bodies and the bodies of others in different cultures. So I felt that it was fairly easy.
Okay, how specific were the guidelines for dance moves?
I think that when people come into this class, they have an idea of what dance is, and they are very narrow-minded about dance and how you can only move a certain way. This dance class was completely different. There are no set rules to how you perform a dance. You're completely free to do whatever you want. It is an expression of who you are. So I felt like there were no strict guidelines at all, if any.
Now I got one last question for you. How did you feel about your final performance?
The final performance, when it was first assigned, I felt a little bit nervous about performing in front of such a large audience, just because it's a different form of dance that people aren't normally used to seeing. So I wasn't sure how people would react, but when the time came to actually perform, I was really comfortable and I thought it was a lot of fun because I had my own interpretation of the dance that I worked with in my group, and the audience that was watching my dance had a completely different interpretation of my dance, so I thought that was really neat to be able to do that. So in this, I hope that I have influenced your decision by answering the questions, and I hope you guys have a great first year in college, and good luck.
Thank you.